I'm here today talking with Dr. BLT, also known as Dr. Bruce L. Thiessen, clinical psychologist, who happens also to be quite a successful musician. And we're talking today about his recently released album, Assault with a Deadly Woman. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Thiessen.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And we want to talk some about this album. We know that you previously had an album called 6 Feet Apart, 6 Feet Under, and that dealt with the COVID virus, but this seems to be a change in direction. Tell us a little bit about what change in direction you have with this album.
Well, you know, the last album, 6 Feet Apart or 6 Feet Under, was getting a lot of attention. People were talking about it. It was very relevant. But to be honest, I got sick about singing about the coronavirus and everything like that. I thought it was time to move on. I think people are ready to change the subject. I know it's still with us, but you know, it's not going to last forever. People want to look at the bright side. They want to look into the future. So I thought I'd put out something that just kind of changes the subject a little bit.
And you got our attention with the title song, Assault with a Deadly Woman. Tell us a little about that title.
Well, Assault with a Deadly Woman, you know, is kind of like, I would say it tells a story. It's kind of an entertaining way of saying a story, but it's also, if you look at it a little closer, it's kind of a warning going out to individuals. Guys, they don't know that there are women out there, and the same could be said for men. There are individuals out there that suffer from borderline personality disorder, and they can inflict some pretty serious damage. And then if you've got your own baggage that you bring to the table, of course, that can complicate matters worse, and things can get really ugly fast.
And the real question is, what did your wife think of the title?
Oh, she thought it was funny, and she actually designed the album cover. She's a highly talented artist. Roxy is. Yeah.
Now let's talk about some of the songs on the album. One is called I May Not Bleed, But It's Killing Me. What is that about?
Well, it's kind of about repression, you know, and how people tend to bottle up everything inside, and then other people just assume that nothing's going on with them. And so it tells the tale of somebody that comes out and says, look, I may not bleed, but this is really killing me. Something is bothering me inside. So.
And another song that's on there is called Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town. What's that all about?
Well, that's an old Mel Tillis song, and it was made famous by Kenny Rogers in the first edition. It's one of two cover songs I do on the album, and it's about a Vietnam vet, and he's paralyzed, and he's got a nice looking wife, and you know, she's bored with him, and she doesn't want to deal with it anymore, and she's heading out to maybe have a few drinks, maybe get some action, and he's dealing with all of his emotions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now we see Face to Face is another title. Real briefly, what is that about?
It's a love song to my wife, basically, and just talking about her pretty face and how I like to look at it every morning. And she loved the song. She thought some of the verses were had a flavor of kind of a little kid, but she also thought that it was kind of a punk song, which I never thought of it as. But it was it's very catchy.
And a few others I want to talk to you about here. One is Shrinking Silhouette. Tell us about that.
Well, that's about somebody that enters a relationship and they're put on a pedestal, and they're all the world to this other individual. But as time goes by, they get taken for granted, and they become just like a shrinking silhouette.
Interesting. Now, another song on here is Teen in Between. What is that about?
Well, that was actually inspired from my earlier work. Before I became a psychologist, I worked at a runaway shelter. I was the coordinator of a runaway shelter for homeless youth, and I would work with doing individual counseling with the runaways, and eventually I would work towards a reunification with the parents, and we do couples counseling. So I worked a lot with teens, and I examined close up the struggles that they go through and the inner conflicts, and so that song just kind of says it all.
And I've noticed how you tend to weave your professional background into your music. What is the reason for that?
Well, to me, music is catharsis. Music is letting out that which is bottled up inside. And more people need to do that, because when it's inside, it's very hard to deal with. But when it's out in the open, when you've let it out in some sort of way that it's creative, or you're just, self-disclosing, it's a big part of the healing process.
And I've noticed also this is for your last several albums, your producer has been Jason Perry. What can you tell us about Jason Perry?
Like, what I can tell about Jason Perry is that he's been a good friend of mine for years, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, this guy is a brilliant musician and he could be actually my producer. I'm more of a raw materials type of songwriter. I grab a guitar, hammer out 3 chords, I put a melody to it, but I really need someone to kind of smooth out the rough edges, and he's perfect. He's brilliant on so many different instruments and putting it all together. So
yeah, he certainly has brought your music together very well in your last few albums. Where can we hear your music right now?
well, different people like to listen to it in different places. Some people go to Spotify, some people prefer iTunes, a lot of people just go to YouTube, and those videos are up there with my wife's brilliant artwork. And
so we can find this just about anywhere right now.
it's all over the place. There's about 20 different outlets, Amazon.com, a lot of different places, yeah.
And any closing words for your fans about this album, Assault with a Deadly Woman?
Well, I really want to thank my fans because they've made this actually my most successful year ever as a singer-songwriter. So I just have to, and I've kind of spoiled them to death because I put out a few albums in the last 6 months, and there's no sign of slowing down or stopping. So they're spoiled to death. They're ready for a new album, and that's what I'm giving them.
Well, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.